Okay, and we are live. And I'm going to admit everyone now.
All right, welcome everybody. This is Startup TNT, Thursday night tradition. It's a very special day for us. It's Summit Day. In some ways, it's just a regular day though, because we meet every single Thursday. I've got a couple slides here I'd like to share with everybody to tell you a little bit about what we do here at Startup TNT. So listen, Thursday Night Tradition is a weekly catalyst that happens every single week in our community. And our motto is have fun, make friends, build companies. And we do that with scientists, entrepreneurs, and investors. We do it with other community members that buy beers for us on Thursdays, or just come out and hang out and bring their community to celebrate with us. But you know what? The best part of what we do is investing in local startups, and that's what we'll be doing today at the Investment Summit. The last time we did this, we invested $260,000 into 3 great companies, Drug Bank, 2S Water, and Future Fields. And the first topic of discussion today is why invest in startups at all? Well, from my perspective, it's because entrepreneurs are the dreamers that refuse to accept our world for what it is, and instead see it for what it could be. Or, to use the expression of my favorite philosopher from New England, of course, to suck the marrow out of life. So let's talk about the Investment Summit, because this is what's going on all day today. We've got some panels going on right now, and then we've got pitches, and then we're going to be making an investment decision live at the summit. So I want to remind everyone, the investors are pre-committing their own dollars into this summit. Each investor puts $5,000 into a proverbial pot, works together as a team to make the decision live at the summit. There's a lot of work going into this. They're doing a lot of due diligence on these companies. And here's the thing, they don't know who the companies are before they make that commitment. They don't even know who the other investors are. So I really want to thank them and make sure everyone appreciates, like, that's a particular type of mindset that says, I'm going to put $5,000 into this idea that we're going to find great companies together and support them and build great companies in our province. So big shout out to all of our investors for participating. We'll be putting $150,000 into 2 great companies today. So listen, I don't want to spend too much time on this. Welcome to TNT Investment Summit 2. It's a double summit. We got 2 cities. We got 180 beer deliveries. Our friends at Polar Park built this great custom branded beer for us. We got 25 donors on Eventbrite that just said, hey, I'll throw some money into the pot. People from the community are still contributing to us. That's what we love to see. 83 companies applied. We got 57 investors participating. They're going to be putting in at least $300,000. And I wasn't kidding when I said they're doing a lot of due diligence. We have a Slack channel that has 3,662 messages talking about those 10 finalists, and they're going to continue talking about them throughout the day today. And I just know, I can see from the chatter on the channel, there's lots of exciting updates from our companies. I think the investors are going to have a very, very tough choice, the type of choice I like to see, because it leads to additional deals. We'll see what happens at the end of the day. But before we get to our first speakers, I do want to give a special thanks to the sponsors. You know, we started this a year and a half ago, and it was just like me having beers with friends because I wanted to do it. Other people started coming. It became this whole thing. We like investing in companies, and we said to the government, and we said, listen, we're doing this great thing. Can you help support us so we can keep doing it and we can hire some professional people to give us some lasting impact? And they said, yes, we can. So thank you, Western Economic Diversification. Thank you, Alberta Innovates and the Edmonton Regional Innovation Network, for supporting us on this and letting us do exactly what we love to do, supporting this community. But we also have a lot of friends from the broader community. Big shout out to CBRE. Friends Jeremy and Mark. Mark's having a baby, right? And Mark's and his wife are having his third kid as we speak. Their friend down in Calgary, John Fisher, hosted Pitch Night 1. He's investing with us now. Amazing. InnovaBot invested with us last time. They're a new VC firm out of Montreal, expanding into Alberta. They're supporting us now as a sponsor. And so much work is being put into this by our organizing partners, MB & Co., Endeavor Advisory, putting a lot of work into managing this event, recruiting the investors. And a big thanks to Valhalla Angels. Many of the investors with us today are members, current or former, of Valhalla Angels, massive angel investment network here in Western Canada. We got some money from our close friends, Accelerate Fund, BDC, KRP, Alberta Enterprise. 2 of those are back for a second time as sponsors. And they put a lot of contributions to us beyond just the money that they're giving. And a big shout out to the community partners, Tech Edmonton and Platform Calgary, who are helping us with entrepreneur recruitment and helping us organize some of the events today. And then Deal Closer, great local company here in Edmonton that's providing us with some paperwork processing. All right, that's the end of the opening, other than look at all these great people that just signed up on Eventbrite that said, hey, I'll put some money into your beer sponsorship budget. Thanks to all these great people, but I don't want to take up any more of everyone's time. Let's start building together. Emily from Taproot Edmonton is here. She's going to be talking to 2 of our investors, John Held and Karen Tang, about why they invest in startups. Take it away, Emily.
Thank you so much, Zach. Wow, what a great intro. Well, welcome everyone to Why Invest in Startups. Really excited to be kicking off the summit today with this session. My name is Emily Rendell-Watson. As Zach said, I'm an Edmonton journalist, currently the managing editor of Taproot Edmonton, which is the flagship publication of Taproot Publishing. And we're working on building a new way to do and fund local journalism right here in Edmonton. So just a quick reminder before we get started, if you have any technical questions about investing, we do have a session with Valhalla Angels later on in the day. So you can save those questions for then. But if you have questions while I'm chatting with Karen and John, feel free to throw them in the chat and I will do my best to get to them before we have to jump on to the next session after this. But we have about 25 minutes, so let's get started. Karen Tang and John Held are both investors with the summit. Hello.
How's it going? Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Great to be here.
thank you for being here. So I'm hoping that you can both start off by telling us a little bit more about your backgrounds and kind of how you got into investing. So Karen, do you want to maybe start off?
Sure. I think I got into the space angel investing pretty unusual way. So like 8 years ago, my husband Zach and we moved out from Montreal to Edmonton. He was pursuing a postdoc at the U of A, and I was gonna study public health, and that's kind of why we came. And during that time as a scientist, I got really involved with, and very interested in the commercialization space, and kind of was very interested in the space of angel investing, supporting local entrepreneurs, taking their technology from the lab to the real world. And for me, this was not the world I'm used to. I work in health promotion, I work with communities, all throughout my life, I work predominantly with racialized and indigenous communities. And so my focus is very much on social, well-being and social impact. And in the past few years, I've both of my parents passed away, and they left me with some wealth, and I've kind of invested those things in prudently, and just saw it grow. And I'm now at a point where I can say, well, if I want to see greater social impact, how can I leverage everything I have, including my wealth, to get there? And angel investing, I think, is one of those things that's just a very interesting, very different avenue, I think, to achieve some of those personal goals of mine. And Zach and I joined Valhalla back in 2014. And, I think when we joined, we've agreed that, investing in local entrepreneurs is a family decision. And I really wanted to see kind of the behind the scene, like what is going on? Is it just people throwing down money and, making these decisions? And I think over time, what I really learned is this is a community coming together, and what you're actually investing in isn't some, code or like ticker on the stock exchange, but you're investing in people. You're investing in everyday hustle. You're investing in people using their smarts, their grit, and achieving and giving up things in life to achieve certain goals. And oftentimes when we align, that's when I get really excited about some of these things.
Okay, great. John, you're coming to us all the way from Toronto today. What motivates you to invest, and can you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Happy to have made this long trip all the way to Alberta to participate, and I'm glad you all welcomed me there. So my background is quite different from Karen. I come from the exciting world of accounting. So I started off at a small accounting firm, and really my exposure to investing kind of came from the experience at that firm, where at one point in time, a partner came into my office and said, "Hey, we're taking this company public on a stock exchange. I need you to help me figure that out." So what that led to actually for me was spending the last 10, 12 years working with a lot of other companies throughout the process of go public transactions. So listing on the TSX, Venture Exchange, CSE, and even some US exchanges. So that gave me a lot of exposure into the capital markets, which is investing as well, but it's at a very different level than angel investing. So speaking to a lot of these companies, entrepreneurs, and people who are at that stage of what many people seek to get to, the exit from a listing, I started to get more curious about the earlier stages as to what went into building up to this, finale in some ways, but there's still a lot to go even when you do a public listing. So I started to speak to more and more entrepreneurs earlier stages, and this has slowly progressed me down to the angel investing level there, where you can get in and meet the entrepreneurs right at the start. So just a friend of mine happened to be working with Zach at Startup TNT and mentioned this to me. I said, "Great, I'd love to participate, learn even more about angel investing," because I've kind of backed into it from a different world. And it's been a very fun process here, and I've actually been very impressed. It's been great to learn a lot about the Alberta startup community, because it seems like a very good, close-knit group where people help each other out.
Well, we're glad to have you all the way from good old Ontario. When you both think about your personal investment thesis and what that looks like in building that, what was that process like? And can you share what that thesis is? I can throw back to you, Karen. Sure. You want to go again?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think, when we first started in 2014, I don't think I even know what a thesis meant. And, but I think what I did understand is when companies pitch, I knew which ones kind of excited me. And I think the one that really excited me was, this East African corporation that came forward, and, a number of Valhalla investors invested in that. And And really, it was offering loans to, at the time, an engineering firm that was really focused on building infrastructure in South Sudan. Now, international development was one of those things that I've always have been drawn to, but never really, like, I did a minor in university, but never really got to experience what that's like. But here I thought, this is probably one of the most riskiest things you could have invested in. And I think at the time we were like, well, what's the most risky thing you can do? Oh, a political coup. Well, it happened. And then, a lot of other stuff happened as well. And it was been quite amazing to see the entrepreneurs kind of pull through all of that. And it's in fact, I think remains one of the most exciting, ventures that Zach and I have gotten ourselves into. And I think it was starting from that point on, I think I started to see, okay, here is how I can support some of, I think this is how I can support, I guess, things happening like on another side of the world to support, whether it's international development, it's, restructuring, rebuilding, or building of a country that is extremely hard hit through famine, through war, through everything that you can think of. And what does that mean for me? And I think that from that moment on, it kind of veered me towards this idea of social impact that's beyond just profit. And I think I started to kind of look at companies that had that mandate. And I would say this past year, I think just supporting local businesses, small businesses have been kind of part of my my job on a day-to-day basis. I work for a private family foundation, and anyways, kind of got involved in some partnerships that really focus on supporting local. And I think there's other things that kind of continue to build that thesis around local entrepreneurs, and this is why I'm so excited about the summit, because it's about circulating local capital with local businesses. And I think, just things that happen in our day-to-day life that keeps me shaping my own investment thesis, which I think is actually different from Zach. So it makes these family decisions kind of interesting to talk about at dinner table.
Yeah, and I imagine that your thesis probably shifts and changes as you go through different parts of your life and your priorities change and you kind of hone in on those values. Yeah. John, when you think about your personal investment thesis and that journey to shaping what that looks like for you, what has that been like?
So definitely over time, I have learned a lot in the investing world. I mean, now I would say the main part of my investment thesis is the people. Earlier stages in investing, I made many mistakes, as many people do. And I would listen to what other people would say. I would listen to certain hype in the media, listen to excitement, but that doesn't always mean there's going to be a successful business there. So what I've learned is you really need to get to know the entrepreneur, what they're made of, will they actually listen? Are they making the right strategic directions? And are they really passionate about the business that they're trying to build? Because in the end, if you don't have the right people running the business, there's going to be a lot of challenges with that business in the long run. A lot of them don't turn out to be a success. So once I know that the people are the right people to do it, another area I look at really is the industry. Clearly, there's a lot of different trends going on in the world, and doing an analysis to make the industry that you do see that large future for is another very important aspect of that, because I guess there's two sides to that. One, I do actually kind of tie into what Karen said there. I do always appreciate when you can be investing, working with an entrepreneur, and also helping people, helping the world become a better place. So I always actually do enjoy looking at business from that perspective. But then there's a lot of interesting niche areas out there that you wouldn't even realize, and the billion-dollar businesses that exist in these little niches that just keep popping up. So there's a lot of interesting things you can learn about these different industries. Mm-hmm. Those are really the two key focuses there that I zone in for my investment thesis.
Karen, dive in.
Can I add to that? I guess two things. One, I think when we talk about impact, it's such a broad spectrum, and I look at the companies that show up to the first summit and even the summit now. I think almost everybody has something that is beyond just making money, right? You're always trying to solve a problem that the world has, And so, I think impact is kind of how you come to define it. And I think I certainly have my own mindset when it comes to, health promotion, healthy communities, social determinants of health, like which companies are really directly working in those spaces. And then I think the other point, John, you said about like the people, I remember one of the earlier conversations we've had with Randy a long time ago, that really stuck with me even until now is like, you can do all the due diligence you want in the world. And I can say that right now in this current process, every single company, the top 5, top 10, have really intense, due diligence checklists. But at the end of the day, who do you want to go into the business with? And I think that's a really key question. And I think to me that is actually kind of my number one thing.
Yeah, and just to add to that, actually, because there's the 2 levels of that. This level of, you really believe in this investor, that they're the right person to get the job done, which is great. At the same time, on top of that, if it's someone that I'd love to sit there and grab a beer with, that just levels it as well. Because if you're going to be with all these people for a long ride, you want to make sure it's someone that you can get along well with.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So for someone who's thinking about maybe trying investing for the first time, they don't have necessarily a background in investing or have family wealth, how do you figure out how to do it?
Oh, that's like where do you start?
Mm-hmm.
And I think like, I wouldn't have gotten to the space, I wouldn't have known about what angel investing even is if it weren't for, Zach being really interested and as a scientist wanting to commercialize technology. I know Tim just said TNT, but there's lots of networking events out there trying to kind of open up networks and make these connections and kind of introduce to people what angel investing is or what entrepreneurship is, etc. And I will say TNT provides a really unique venue where kind of, investors, entrepreneurs, social service providers kind of show up. You're kind of like letting down your walls a little bit and like just being human with each other. And it's through these kinds of like, casual conversations, you get to know the field a little bit more. And certainly for me, I've let go of a lot of my own assumptions coming into this space. And so I think grabbing a beer is a good, or your beverage of choice, right? Is a good starting point.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, it's really about researching and finding the communities. As I said, I didn't come from the angel investing startup world there. And I've actually, since I joined Startup TNT, I've been digging deeper and deeper into it. And it's amazing how many different communities exist out there. Angel investing communities, startup technology communities. So it's just finding these different communities that are out there. I know with COVID, it's a little bit more difficult because it's all digital. But hopefully once the world opens up again, there'll be a lot of social networking events with other startups similar to Startup TNT that allow you to kind of gain access to that community, speak to entrepreneurs, find out what's happening. If there's certain areas you have a real interest and passion about, be like, hey, do you know anyone working on anything in this space? And I think people are always very open to making introductions. So it's just about the networking and just researching to find these right groups to start up with.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, in the past few years, I've kind of looked at a few different initiatives in North America that is looking to bring in, for example, more women investors into the angel investing space. And I think part of that is to dispel the myth that you have to be wealthy. You have to have, yes, of course, there are certain criteria, but like, I think it's to dispel a lot of the myth that you have to be a certain persona, that you had to be white, you had to be male, you had to be old, for example. Examples like the female funders, Shio and I think the emerging 51 down in Calgary are, I think, good examples of trying to strengthen this space and letting more people know. I think part of it is awareness, letting more people know what is angel investing, and I think those things help to open up the space and let more people in.
Yeah. One other thing I just chime into quickly, looking to get started is, we're talking about, real dollars being invested here. There's a high chance that you'll lose the investment you put in. Everyone's seen, the Facebooks of the world go out there and grow to these billion-dollar companies, but, that's 1 in a billion. So it's like always keep in mind when you're investing that there's a good chance you could lose money. And that's something I always like to emphasize when people are looking at investing for the first time, because it is high risk and that needs to be kept in mind.
And that's being an accredited investor. So there are certain things that you have to kind of achieve.
Karen, one of the things that we talked about when I interviewed you for the podcast, the Taproot Edmonton Igniting Innovation podcast series that we were working on that shipped around the summit, was we talked about the number of women in the space, diversity and in investing. What has it been like for you in terms of often being one of the only women in the room, not seeing a lot of diversity, and what are some of the things that you think can help with that and bring more faces that we don't usually see in investing to that space?
I think the experience sometimes can be really awkward, pretty jarring. And not only as the only woman, but the only woman of color, usually sometimes the only person of color, the only perhaps non-business, non-accountant or non-financial person in the room. I think all these, I bring all of those things. But again, I think part of it is over time, I've certainly, changed some of my own assumption about what people are like in the community. And I think things like sort of this casual environment that TNT has created, I think really helps with that, because you get to know people as their whole, and that lends itself, I think, easier to welcome people of sort of diverse background. I still think this lack of diversity issue isn't insolvable. I think there are efforts, when we put concerted efforts towards this, let's say increasing women entrepreneurs, we will see that. And I think if we put in some concerted efforts in things like women investors or diverse investors, I think we will see outcomes. I know later on, I think you interviewed Rhonda and John for the podcast, and I thought they had some really great points that we are seeing now more and more entrepreneurs who've gotten to a very successful point in their life and now giving back and becoming investors themselves. Again, increasing the networks that are connected. And I think, and if you think about the sort of the diversity of entrepreneurs, for a very long time, I think racialized folks, Black, Indigenous people of color, and women have not had the same kind of access to these business and entrepreneurship opportunities. And that's also, taken concerted efforts to increase participation in those spaces. And so there's, we're maybe seeing sort of a trajectory that is not on the same pace as, say, white men. So I think over time, as we continue to not only invest with our dollars, but invest with our energy in these spaces, we're going to see greater return and more entrepreneurs of different backgrounds giving back to the community.
I actually think, you hit on some good points there, like diversification in the room actually can lead to some of the most successful businesses out there. Like with my partners here in my office, we often have differences of opinion when people come from different places, different, education background, different cultural backgrounds. You have so many different perspectives that can come together. And if all of those different perspectives can come together, have a debate or an argument and come to the one answer, generally, you're probably going in the right direction. So it's actually very good to have the diversity in the room to help with that.
Yeah, I think in the last summit, there was a very specific instance, and I remembered, I think I was the only one to pick up on this little tidbit in one of the companies that they were looking, to align with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And I thought that was so interesting, and because it's something I'm more familiar with, and maybe others weren't necessarily in the room, and everyone's focused on certain other elements of a business. And I remember talking to the founders about that and kind of why that was so important. And for them, it was about, and this was, spontaneously, aligning with the Sustainable Development Goals had to do with expanding, say, like the possibility in the European market, and with students and universities and mental health. And that kind of opens up a whole different set of opportunities that maybe we weren't even talking about at the time. So I think, yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's taken me a while actually to realize, oh, I actually do bring something different, that I see things that other people aren't, because I think it can be really intimidating to enter into these spaces where you might be the odd one out. But it's taken some time to get there for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's such a great, important point to share. And I think that, if anyone is interested in hearing more about the conversation we had around that, you can definitely check out the podcast, Igniting Innovation as well. We are coming up on the end of this session. So do either of you have any parting tips or advice for folks who are looking to get into investing, or any last stories you want to share that you think might be helpful for people to hear?
So, I mean, from my perspective, I'd say really two main things. Do your proper diligence, but also have fun with it. And I think those are just two of the key things that I always look for when I'm looking to invest and, help move the business forward.
Yeah, and to build on that, I think I'm always for learning by doing. You can read all the books you want in the world about angel investing. It does not compare to the fact you just can't get your hands dirty, put some money down, and learn with a community. This is not about you pursuing something on your own. You're doing it with a community of people who, many of whom maybe might not even realize it, are in the same position as you.
Great. Well, thank you both so much. Hopefully, those of you who are listening might have felt inspired to invest or participate in the next summit as an investor, reinvesting in the Edmonton startup community. And yes, thank you, John, for joining from Toronto, and Karen for joining from Edmonton, and both sharing your experiences investing both in the past and with this summit. So our next session is Startup Jeopardy, and you can find the link to that in the chat just at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And I believe that is a different Zoom call. So if you want to hop off this one and hop over to that one. But otherwise, thank you all very much for joining, and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Everyone, enjoy.